Is it? Oh, there we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast, where we talk about everything fantastical with the authors you love. Today, our hosts and our guest authors are ourselves. So we have Andy Peliquin here. Say
How's
hello.
it going, Stevie? Yeah, this is our first episode, so as you can see, things are a little bit, getting off to a start. As we go, we're going to become super professional, and it will just be seamless. But if anything goes sort of haywire or clunky, it's because we're getting used to this. But anyways, I'm Andy Peliquin, author of The Last Bucellari and The Queen of Thieves dark fantasy series. I've been reading fantasy for more time than I can remember. I started out with the C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia series, the John Carter of Mars series, which is technically Sword and Science, not Sword and Sorcery, but who cares? And of course, the Dragonlance. And I've been a fantasy addict for the last decade. So of course, it's natural that I would write fantasy.
For me, I'm Stevie Collier. I am an upcoming author, which adds the diversity to this podcast. So I'm not an awesome best-selling author like Andy yet, but I will be. So I have 2 books in the works. My first is a high epic dark fantasy novel called The Four Territories. And the series I'm working on now is called The Grind, which is a lit RPG series. And they're just short novellas based on MMORPGs. Like Andy, I also grew up reading only fantasy to the point where the Catholic schools I was going to were taking them away from me when I was reading in class. And the first time I ever went to the principal's office was because I wrote a dark story about a weasel sneaking into an orphanage and ripping out the organs of all the orphans. So that
sounds terrible, Stevie.
That's a good story though for a 10-year-old. I had to go see the priest and everything, make sure I wasn't. No, I really did have to go see the priest though. So, but like you, and I read Aragon and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, and just had this crazy imagination. So, and figured out I couldn't draw these awesome ideas I had, so I wanted to try writing. So I've been writing for a long time. So
yeah, I think that's probably going to be the thing that most of our guest authors are going to have in common, is that they're going to have been reading fantasy for a long time, and they're going to get this itch, this story that they need to tell, and eventually it just comes out, even if it takes years of writing to put together that first novel. I know for me, my first novel, I started it when I was 17, 18, and I didn't actually finish it until I was 25.
Was that the Atlantis one?
Yeah, the Atlantis one, which is now completely unavailable. Thank you.
Oh, it's unavailable?
My sister did that, actually. Yes, I unpublished that one.
Oh, it's a free story though, right? It's a free novel.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want that novel, go to www.andypeliquin.com.
Oh, very clever.
I know. That's the business major in me.
There you go. Yeah, Stevie's going to be the one doing all the clever pitching and stuff. I'm just going to be talking and pretending like I know what I'm talking about.
I'm the scammy business guy who just wants your money and not to tell you an awesome story.
That's cool. All right, so the whole thing about this podcast, obviously we're going to talk fantasy because that's something that we both love reading and writing. But I've always been really interested in the deeper side of things beyond just the great story and the swashbuckling heroes and anti-heroes and all of that. So when I was doing my own discussion panels on my channel on YouTube, we got into some really interesting topics. We got into how dark should the fantasy stories go, dealing with things like abuse and violence and genocide and things like that. And I've loved researching the psychology of my characters to find out what makes them tick so I can understand them better. And things like sexuality and gender and race and religion. And so one of the things that I'm really looking forward to about this podcast is a chance to explore these things with the different guests, of course, through the means of a great story.
Yeah.
But we get to have these discussions about these, I like to call hard-hitting topics.
Yeah. That's when we first came up with this idea for this podcast, that wasn't even an idea in my head. I thought we were just going to get on here and rant about Dungeons and Dragons and the newest Star Wars movie or something like that. But you bringing that up, I was an instant fan of the idea, and I already have a couple ideas. I've talked to Nicholas Eames, and that's for the June 27th.
Okay.
June 27th. And I really want him to show us the comedy aspect of fantasy and how to make the reader laugh, because actually I have the book right here, Kings of the Wild. And this is the first novel in a long time to make me laugh out loud. Besides yours, of course. The guy gets gorged in the groin. That tickled me.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing that I've never really mastered is the comedy of fantasy. You know, there's some great people out there who write comedy. I mean, there's Terry Pratchett, who's the king, obviously, and Michael Sullivan has gotten a lot of humor into his, but I've never really been able to infuse actual humor. I'm really sarcastic, really snarky, but I don't know how to do the comedic timing with the beats and all of that.
Well, they say comedy is the hardest genre to write in. You know, that's I've heard that many times, and it is. So it'll be interesting to see what Nicholas has to say about that. In fact, my snippet today that we're going to read from is my attempt at trying to be funny in fantasy while still keeping that dark aspect to it. So
that's cool. I guess we'll be the critics of how well you pulled it off today.
Yeah. If you're not laughing, then. But so we're talking about trends now, right? The weekly discussion topics is what we're calling it.
Yeah, well, that's just what we called it. You know, we can come up with something super clever for it, but you know, I do like delving into the deeper things behind the story. When you sit down to write a fantasy story, you have obviously the action stuff in mind. You know, okay, the thief is going to encounter this antagonist, the hero is going to find this problem or obstacle to overcome. But then when you write the story, as you go writing the story, these deeper themes sort of become infused into the writing as you have to develop your character's personality and his traits, his strengths and weaknesses.
And you're big. I'm sorry, I was going to say, and you're big into research on this kind of stuff too.
Absolutely. I love doing the research because I need to understand the character in order to write them. For example, right now I'm working on the 4th book in The Last Bucellari series, which is a sociopath and a psychopath at odds with each other. And so it's like showcasing the differences in their personalities, their psychology, how they go about trying to manipulate people differently. It's a really interesting experience to write that, because it's these really complicated characters. And so I really enjoy delving into that. Do you have any recurring themes or any important themes in especially the first in your series?
So my first one the theme was the lack of nurture, and it's about an orphan boy who just can't seem to hold on to someone he cares about. They just keep dying off, and then he's plunged with this dark thing inside of him, and without giving away too much, he's trying very hard to keep sane with all this horrible stuff going on around him. And again, he can't hold on to anything, so finally it just lets loose. He lets loose, actually. So, and another theme that I really like in fantasy is romance. And all my friends are surprised to hear me say that. And I say it all the time. I like a good romance. Not a chick flick or a chick lit, you know, but like a good romance, you know, one that the female characters aren't, they're strong characters, you know, and they don't just give away their love to this awesome hero, but no, a real connection. So I tried to add that into my book, but on a second read, I needed some tweaking. So I felt like they fell in love a little bit too fast. So love and romance were big themes of mine, which kind of counteracts the darkness, but the way I kill off a lot of people kind of darkness. So
yeah.
Well, I saw
that's what was that?
I was hoping in your book, I don't know in these podcasts should we give things away, but I wanted a romance in your book. I saw it there. And you surprised the shit out of me whenever it didn't happen. The bar, I thought, oh, there's the woman of his dreams, you know.
Well, you know, I see the way Twilight did it, the 1,000-year-old vampire meets the 17-year-old girl, and
Yeah.
I just went the other way. For people who aren't familiar with my writing, my main character, the Hunter, is a few thousand years old. He's a half demon assassin, and he interacts with this young-ish woman, and that's the one that Stevie's talking about. And so I went into it thinking, okay, am I going to do romance here or am I not? And I knew that doing the romance would just be cliche. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I went the total opposite direction and avoided the romance. And there will be romance later on in the series, but at least for that first book, really the thing that was most important was his isolation, because in the beginning of the book he does have some contact, some humanity, some interaction, but by the end of that first book, he's totally and utterly alone, which of course leads to the events in the second and third and fourth book and all of that.
Yeah, and another thing I like about your book is we never know the birth of the Hunter, and that was really driving me crazy in my head because it kept saying how old he was and stuff, but I wanted to know, did he have a mother, or was he just spawned from the ground like an orc? And that's what wanted me to get the second novel. Is it on Audible, by the way? No, the second one's not on Audible.
The second one's not. It's in progress. The first one is on Audible.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll ever find out how he was born, who his parents were, because of the fact that his memories keep getting erased. He has no memory beyond 50 years, and in the third book, you find out why he has no memory. So you may never actually get a glimpse of his origin story. All you'll get is the origin story of the current incarnation. And so, which is actually kind of fun, because then I can do other incarnations of the Hunter throughout history. For example, I've got this prison story that I'm going to work on in the next 5-10 years. And one of the characters in the prison is going to be this guy who doesn't talk, who keeps to himself. And at the end, he's a total badass. And then he goes and retrieves his dagger, Soul Hunger, and he leaves. And that's like, he's there the whole book, but it's only at the end of the story do you realize that this is the Hunter.
You know what? What I just realized is our listeners probably don't know what we're talking about. Why don't you give us an idea of what Blade of the Destroyer is, the last Bucellari series?
Right. So. All right, so the last Bucellari series is dark fantasy. It showcases this half-demon assassin known as the Hunter. Basically, he is the boogeyman of his city. Everyone's afraid of him. There are a couple of scenes, tons of fun to write. He actually made people piss their pants. Great fun for me. But then at the same time, he's very much an outcast. He stands out because he's not human. He's also an assassin, so he has to hide his identity in order to avoid being hunted down and people taking it out on him. So he's alone in the world. He has a few people that he kind of calls his friends, but no one really knows him for who he is. And so it's this odd dichotomy between a character who is cynical, who's seen the worst side of human nature, and yet at the same time, he wants to be accepted. He wants to find friends. He wants to find his place in this world where he doesn't belong. So it's this super strong and yet super weak character at the same time. A really interesting dynamic for me to write.
I think in your book, 2 times he scared the pee out of somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And each time was a different way of peeing themselves. And I loved it. I was like, how many ways can you pee yourself? But you figured it out. So that's awesome. Well, my book, it's got a lot going on in it, much like yours. And, I kind of just want to read my rough draft blurb that I created a couple days ago. And I'm quite happy with it. So, 4 exotic territories preside under 4 unique suns, each with their own distinct color, race, and culture. A young hybrid is born under the hottest sun in the cruelest of territories. In the realm of Rhea, no place is safe for the young orphan Esh, who is soon left for dead in the ash-filled streets of the city of Zell. An elderly male sees the transgressions of the people of Rhea and saves the young boy, a kindness that is unheard of under the red sun. However, there is something in this man's history that binds him to this young boy. Esh soon learns that he must acquaint himself with the skills of assassination martial arts, and alchemy in order to survive the unforgiving lands. These skills are his destiny, for they will help him to serve him in a quest he not yet knows of. All is going well until a dark and forgotten energy finds its way into young Esh's body, only to wreak havoc on his mind and drag his spirit in the direction of darkness. So,
pretty awesome.
I thought it was pretty cool. The only thing that I might have to change is the ash-filled cities, because people don't know that the red. There we go.
So we're back with a few technical difficulties. As we said before, we're just kind of figuring this all out. But
yeah,
this is going to be awesome. So we're going to have plenty of time to talk over the next months about all the different things. But one of the things that I was most excited about doing this podcast is being able to do live reenactments of people's readings. You know, yeah. I had a teacher in elementary school who was a huge theater buff, and so I never really got into the theater myself. But I've always had that training, you know, to be dramatic and act and stuff like that. So it's been really fun for me to do the live readings to my reader group. So I wanted to do it here. So I think for this week, we're going to go with your excerpt, Steve. We'll do a reading from yours so people can get an understanding of your writing style. I'm sure we'll have a chance in the near future to get into one of mine. But
you don't want to do both?
Well, I don't know if we're going to have the time. The podcast may cut off before we're done again. So we'll just do yours this time, and in a future one, we'll do one of yours. I mean, one of mine.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to play the old man or do you want to play Esh?
Well, this is your book, so which character would you like me to read?
You know, okay, you play Esh since you have a deeper voice
okay.
than me, and I will play the old man.
All right, and who's going to do the narrator?
I'll do the narrator.
Perfect. Now this old man, how am I supposed to voice him? What kind of a man is he? Is he a growly? Is he a gruff? Is he a quiet?
Oh no, you're doing Esh.
Oh, okay, right, Esh. How old is Esh?
19.
19. Okay.
Yes.
So I can pretty much do my own voice.
No, exactly. That's why I said you should do it, because he's a big, tall, muscular guy. So
okay.
You're perfect for him. So when we say narrator, do I do like the he said, she said kind of thing, the voice?
Yeah.
I do?
all that. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. All right, so I'll go ahead and just do a quick explanation of the scene. Master Rift and his mentee, Esh, are performing their duties picking up trash in the slums of the city of Zell. A group of women congregate to watch Esh work as the sun glistens from the sweat on his massive arms. Master Rift pushes Esh to go and speak with them. So now I'll start as Master Rift.
Here we go.
You know, your father was addicted to his training and never missed a day. However, he made time for himself. He understood that there's a balance in life and that there is a world outside the punching bags.
What are you suggesting, Master?
Esh asked, now letting himself look at the females behind him. They decided to stick around to watch him work. I'm saying you should have a little fun. Go out once in a while. Go explore the city. Why don't you go talk to them? Riff suggested, pointing his head towards the females.
What? No, they're busy.
Esh said, his face burning, not just from the red sun. Busy talking about you, I'm sure. Now go.
Master, I can't.
Go on, shoo, Riff said, trotting towards him and physically trying to shove him towards the females. But Esh was far too large for the elder to even slightly budge him.
Master, please.
That's an order. I shouldn't have to command a 19-year-old to go and speak to young specimens of the opposite sex. Back when I was spry and youthful, you can bet I made it part of my training to learn how to talk the talk.
But I've never talked to a female before. What if they don't like talking about working out or fighting?
Oh, God be good, Riff said, slapping his forehead. You don't talk about that kind of stuff around a female, you idiot. You talk about flowers and smelly good things.
Doesn't sound like you know what you're talking about either,
Esh said, smiling down upon his old mentor. You have 10 seconds to go and introduce yourself before I whip your ass in front of him. Now go. Esh knew Rift wasn't kidding, and that he would actually use that old cane of his to start beating him in front of the females. He found this to be a little less appeasing than the talking. And so he forced one foot after the next to walk over to the group of females. They were becoming closer and closer, their breasts growing larger and larger with each step. He could see that their sweat had revealed their nipples through their thin cloth dresses, and panic arose in him, far more than the time him and Zep had alchemically conjured a miniature Zendra beast with razor-sharp pincers that nearly took off his foot before they could kill it. One of the shorter females elbowed the gang leader as Esh approached, and all three gasped at how big he was. He must have been a giant compared to all the other males they had seen. Esh looked back at Rift for reassurance, but found that he was only making kissing faces, embracing his cane in a sexual manner. Esh was alone.
Hi?
Esh said in the Raelic tongue. They didn't respond. They also weren't smiling anymore.
You look hot in those clothes you're wearing.
Esh stammered out, and quickly realized how much of a pervert he must have looked like. The panic grew inside of him, and his normal perspiration from the heat doubled. The females began to slowly back away from him, fear on their faces.
Don't be afraid,
he said.
I only wanted to...
Esh put a hand out to show them that he would bring no harm to them, but it was the wrong thing to do. The females screamed and fell over themselves trying to get away. Esh yelled too and turned to run himself. For the first time in a long time, Esh tripped on the ground and fell on his face. He looked up and saw that the females were sprinting away from him. It felt as though all the humanoids of Rhea were now looking down on him and laughing. Rift was there and gave him a hand. Great first try. You'll get him next time, lad. Esh stood up and brushed the ash from his legs and chest.
Did you see the way they looked at me? Like I was a monster.
Rift scratched his head. He squinted back up at Esh and said, Well, they aren't used to someone as, large as you. He punched Esh in the arm playfully, but pulled back his fist in a bit of pain. It was true, though. Esh had grown so tall and so massive in the last 5 years. His mentor and Zep were both considered tall for humanoids of Rhea, and Esh towered over both of them. It wasn't until now that he realized just how big his arms, legs, and chest were. Just a few more attributes to make him stand out even more so.
How can I ever become an agent if I turn out to be socially unstable?
Esh asked, walking back with Rift to continue their work. That's your own damn fault, lad. Don't blame me that you spend all your time lifting heavy objects and eating as much as a Rectops. Rift looked up and saw Esh's disappointed face. However, I do think you're right. We do need to practice your social skills. How about first thing in the morning? You'll have to wake up extra?
Oh, thank you, master,
Esh said, pulling Rift into a tight embrace. Rift pushed Esh off of him in a curse, but felt joy in his heart. They both loved each other, father and son. And that's it. Yeah.
That was great. That was funny.
You actually liked it?
Yeah, I love the snarky little old guy. I mean, I see him as much older than he probably is the way he talks.
Yeah, he's very old, but his training keeps him young and spry, as he would say. So he was so fun to write, and he's the same way throughout the whole book. And it's really Esh who, like, when I first wrote the book, I was so ready for Esh to grow up because I was annoyed with writing him. He was a bratty child, so. And you know, it was the first time getting to read your what's it called, Children of the Night, Child of the Night Guild. And so Guild, I'm sorry, Child of the Night Guild. And so I'm guessing number 7 is the lead character in that book.
Yeah.
Okay. At first I was like, man, I thought it was a girl who was supposed to be the lead, but it's number 12 in this snippet you sent me that really gets the tar beat out of him.
Well, yeah, because the 12 is the antagonist, so it showcases sort of the darkness of the guild environment.
Okay,
which was a lot of fun for me to write, obviously.
And so, you want to tell us a little bit about this book, or is that outside of our outline?
Well, no, we've got a couple of minutes, I think. The Queen of Thieves series is set in the same world as The Last View Solari, a neighboring city, and it follows a girl who's sold by her father to the Thieves Guild, and basically what she has to do to survive. It definitely shows the progression from a scared 8-year-old to a confident, successful 18-year-old. It's 10 years of her life, and just everything that turns her from an innocent, weak child into a ruthless killer and thief, essentially.
In this snippet you sent me, this excerpt, she seems a little bit weaker. Am I right?
Yeah, it's
okay.
right in the beginning.
She seems kind of like meek. So
well, she's 8 and she's small and she's had a rough couple of years.
Okay,
I won't spoil anything.
yeah. I guess I'll talk really quickly about the grind. So it's based in a world of the MMORPG. We are taking the view of an actual character who is created and finds that he doesn't like being controlled by this player who, well, he doesn't know. He thinks it's like a godly, this celestial character that tells him what to do. And slowly he starts questioning it. Why do I have to go attack this? Why do I have to eat this? Why do I step that direction when I really want to go this way? And it starts glitching out the game. And the story is this character who does not want to do what his creator does, and he somehow figures out a way to break that connection. And so this player, this we call them players, this player becomes his own. And throughout the novella, he becomes more and more human. Well, he's half elf, but he becomes more and more of a person. So his skin starts to tan. He gets more feelings. His taste buds grow. So it was really cool. I wanted to take a different aspect in the MMORPG genre, because really in lit RPG, people are stuck in video games, and I wanted to be a little bit different because I'm unique. So
very good. That's what matters, right? Standing out from the pack.
Yes, and I really wanted to get to I really liked your excerpts, so I'm just trying to figure out when we could add that in next time.
I'm sure we'll have a chance when one of our guests has an unexpected emergency, or I'll have a book launch in July, so we can do a special episode on launch day.
It doesn't have to be on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. As the owners of this podcast, we can do whatever the heck we want.
Whatever the hell we want. Yes, I love it. It feels good to say. Yes.
Yeah.
So on closing, does it tell us how much time we have left?
It doesn't. It doesn't. We may have just hit the wrong button in the previous one, or we may have run out of time. But
you kind of broke up there. What'd you say?
I was going to say we might have hit the wrong button, or we may have just run out of time. So we could probably just put an end to this now, and by next week we'll have figured it all out, so we can have a smooth, seamless podcast.
Okay. I just wanted to say real quickly, I watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Have you seen it?
I loved it.
It was so good. It was awesome. So much. It starts in action, it's so good.
Yeah, and funny action too, because you've got the little baby tree dancing around while everyone's being beat up behind him, and so it's this weird thing, and yet it's funny to see everything that's going on behind him, but the shot is on the tree.
I could barely concentrate because the audience was laughing so much. And Drax, he is my favorite. He gets me every time. I love that. He's so cool. Yeah. Who would think a WWE wrestler could be such a funny actor?
Hey, well, you got The Rock, and so there you go. There's a trend.
Yeah. He is funny too. So so in these podcasts, should we give away things about these movies, or should we just say go watch it or don't go watch it?
We probably shouldn't give away spoilers, because I would murder someone who gave away spoilers, and I don't want to be murdered.
Yeah, I just read a book on writing fiction, and half of the book was him giving away endings. I was so mad. Like classic books like Moby Dick and Oliver Twist, but I didn't want to know the endings to them. I haven't read them yet. I want to go and read them, I knew I had an idea of what happened, but he gives like the details. This is what happens.
Oh, wow.
Stop already. God. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I like ending these podcasts is, in our outline, having a fantasy related topic. So, and we can do you think we should go ahead and sign off now? Say goodbye to our amazing listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've done enough damage for one day.
Yeah, some fiendish damage.
There you go.
Yes.
D4 damage to kick it off.
You know, I had an idea. We should do like a word of the day, a word of the podcast.
Okay.
And I thought about this today. For some reason, driving in my car, these weird ideas. But the word of the day, or a nominee, would be heinous.
Okay.
I love that word when it comes across in a book, heinous.
I like it. Unfortunately, it's a word that's usually telling in that it tells you what to expect from a character. So if you use the word heinous, you know that the character is going to be bad. So it's one that you have to use sparingly.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Well, what if you use it like, I don't know, like he ate his bowl of oatmeal in a heinous grace or something like that. I don't know, or a beast could be heinous.
Yeah, but again, like I'm saying, it's telling the reader what to think of this character,
And we want to show it.
Exactly. So it's a great word if it's used properly, but if it's not, it could be like saying I love you, or like using the word love in a story prematurely makes the reader, like it tells the reader you need to feel this relationship. You're trying to avoid that. You're trying to show the relationship through the actions, through the dialogue, through everything, instead of saying love. So same with heinous.
Okay, because I just used it with this guy's breath who was heinous. It was a heinous breath.
That's great. That's great, because that's a descriptor. It's like saying putrid. You know that putrid is a way to describe something like that. But if you're saying he's a heinous person, you're kind of telling the reader.
Yeah, of course. Or if yeah, that's good. All right. Well, what do you think about the word of the day?
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna come up with an awesome word next year.
Okay.
I mean, next week too.
Next year.
Next week. Yeah, next year. Next week we've got the awesome Kevin J. Kessler coming on to talk about his series Rosinante, which is a great name thanks to the Don Quixote novel. It's the name of Don Quixote's horse, but it's the name of his dragons in his series.
Is it really?
And
I've yet to read that.
Don Quixote?
Yeah, isn't he like a he's like a traveler or a hero or something?
He is he's a madman who has delusions that he is a hero.
Okay.
And so he travels around and he sees everything as villains and knights and fair ladies. And you have to go read it, or at least you have to watch the movie Man of La Mancha, because it's amazing.
But that's me every day. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Very good. Signing off. Tune in next week, Thursday at 5:30 PST, 7:30 CST, or 8:30 Eastern Time, to have an interview with Kevin Kessler and find out more about how the name of Don Quixote's horse is actually a name for a dragon.
And it's going to be a podcast of dragons. You'd be crazy not to miss it. Come on.
There you go. Exactly.
Yes. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great week.
Bye.